Everyone, today we are going to create an artwork inspired by the work of Jen Aranyi. She has a really cool Instagram account and she does a lot of really interesting process videos where you can watch her create some of her paintings. You'll notice from this picture here, she works fairly small. If this is like a marker here, this isn't much bigger than that, if bigger at all. It's close to the size of that. It's not very large. And she does paint on several different surfaces. A lot of her work is on paper, but she's also done some paintings on slices of wood as well. But she loves nature and she loves bright colors. So she creates these galaxy skies that she adds parts of nature to. So you can see in these she's added trees. She's also done mountains, cabins, and campgrounds and things like that. So we are going to do this today on hopefully a watercolor paper. If you don't have a piece of paper that is for painting, then adding the water to the markers is probably not going to turn them into paint. So if you don't have some sort of watercolor paper or mixed media paper that you can get wet, then you can still color with the markers, but you might not want to try and turn it into paint if the paper is not going to be good for that. You just kind of have to play it by ear. You can always do a test. So if you ever want to test your paper to see if it works, so for example, here's a piece of copy paper, then what you would want to do is just put a little bit of marker on it and then use a brush with a little bit of water and then just see if it works. So this one, it works a little bit, but it doesn't work great. You can see that. And some papers are not meant to be painted on, so it doesn't work as well. All right, so for this artwork, in addition to needing that piece of watercolor style paper, you are also going to want some washable markers. If it's a Crayola marker, it's typically washable. You're also going to want a brush and a water cup. You are going to need something to trace, like sour cream type container size lids work really well for this. If you want to make it a different shape, you can certainly do that. So that's up to you. And then for the end, when we do the trees, you want some type of black marker. You can use a permanent Sharpie style marker. You could use even a Crayola marker and it would work. It might not be as dark though. And then to make the stars, if you're at home, you might have something like white out that could work if you don't have white paint. Typically you would want like a white poster paint or a tempera paint of some kind. Even like a white house paint would be fine, but you want it to be like a wet white paint. So like you probably use white watercolor if you got it really wet and let it sit for a little bit so it kind of gets softened up. You can probably use that too. If you have a white pen or marker, you can also try that. Even possibly a white crayon, if you press hard enough, or a white colored pencil could show up. It might not be as bright. All right, so to get started, she has kind of three parts to her process here. The first is that she adds the galaxy sky colors on. Then she typically does the trees. And then the last step is the stars. So when you're choosing your colors for your sky, you want them to be colors that are going to blend well. So if you're looking at a color wheel here, you don't want to do things that are going to be opposite. So if I did like blue and orange and yellow, if I got blue and orange mixed up, they're going to make that thing between, which is kind of a brownish grayish color. It neutralizes the colors. So we want to avoid that. We want the colors to stay bright. So choosing things that are close together are going to blend better. For me, I did this one here with these three. And then I've also got one I'm going to use here in a minute that I used these three. So I think for this one, I'm going to go this route where I go from sort of here to here on the color wheel. The next step is to create that space that you're going to fill in. So I'm going to put my lid down and I'm going to lightly trace around it so that I have my circle shape. If you want to make a triangle shape, that's fine. Or if you want to use the whole paper, you can do that too. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to color. All right, so now I'm going to add in my colors for the sky. So I'm going to do them in order. So at the bottom here, I'm going to be a little bit brighter. And you can kind of you don't have to go straight across with your coloring. You can kind of create more of like a wavy line edge. The more marker you put down, the brighter the color is going to be as it changes into paint. Just go real slow along the edge though. You want to kind of keep that circle shape if you're using the circle. So make sure you trace the edge carefully. Alright, so now that I've got that color layered in, when I do the next color, I need to overlap them a little bit. So that's something you got to pay attention to. Overlap means one goes over top the other a little bit. So I'm going to go now to this darker plum purple color that I'm using. I'm going to trace the edges first a little bit up. There is a lot of blue in this purple, so it is very dark. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do that top part first, and then I'm going to work my way down towards the other color. And I am swirling my marker. That way I don't get those lines. If you swirl it, it looks a little bit more like cloud shapes, which is more like a galaxy. So I'm going to swirl it into the other color a little bit. That way when I turn them into paint, they're already on top of each other so they can blend a little easier. And then I'll fill in the middle. Alright, and then my last one there, the blue, same deal. I am going to trace the edge first. So I'm going around the edge first there. That way I have a nice clean edge when I'm done. And then I'm going to start at the top edge. You can see this one's got a little bit more marker juice in it. A little bit less of the white fuzzy look. And I'm going to work my way down towards the purple and work my way down over it a little bit, overlap it. So again, those colors will blend better. Okay, so now I am ready to use the water and the brush. So I want to start here with the lighter of the colors first, and then I'm going to work my way across. So you don't need too much water. We don't want big puddly messes. But you want to be gentle when you do this. You don't want to rub real hard. And you can see already it's softening it up, turning it into paint. I'm losing that white kind of speckly look. So I'm going to do all of the parts that aren't mixed first. And every so often I get just a tiny dip, a little bit more water. I hardly have any in that cup at all. You don't need a lot. So now I'm going to work on sort of adding those colors together. So I'm swirling across the two colors and blending. Now, you got to be careful with these edges so that you don't have lines. That way it goes gradually from one color to the other. All right, I'm going to clean my brush off a little bit and then work on the rest of those purple spaces. And you notice I'm kind of swirling my brush as well. Go along the edge real careful. I don't really want it spilling out from my circle shape. I gotta be careful and I don't have too much water on my brush when I do that. All right, now I've got the purple done. So I'm gonna get my brush wet again and I'm gonna swirl across the purple and the blue. Kind of get those blended together. Then I'm gonna clean my brush again. And then that last part is just the blue. Now, you are going to need to let this dry a little bit, okay? So you can't jump on to making the trees while it's wet. That's one of the reasons why I got another one ready. To help it dry, if you've got like a fan or something you can put on it, that'll help dry it faster. It shouldn't take too terribly long to dry, but you do want it to be dry before you move on. So I am going to set this one aside and switch back to that other one that I did that is already dry. So now on this one, to make the trees, I'm going to actually start and add a little bit of ground into mine first. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. You can just do the tops of the trees. That's up to you. I like to add just a little sliver of ground to work on. So I'm going to make that bottom edge, just a little bit of it, not much. A lot of times, Jen Aranyi will just do the trees. So that's up to you. Now, once I've done doing that, I'm going to make the tree trunks next. So when I do the tree trunks, I'm just using kind of a straight line. I don't want them all the same height. You can certainly do a lot of them if you want. You can see she's got quite a few in this one. So that's kind of up to you how many you want to add in there. I would make some taller and some shorter. Kind of like that. And then to make the tree, you're going to zigzag back and forth across the tree trunk. And when you do this, at the top, your zigzags are going to be super short. But then they're going to get longer and longer and longer as they get to the bottom. The thing you want to avoid that can look kind of weird is if you make your tree and you do this. Okay, that's too much space between the zigzags and it doesn't really look like a tree. So you want to keep them kind of close together and just go real short and then get longer and longer to kind of fill in the bottom. If you think you're not gonna do great at this the first time, maybe you need to practice, just grab a scrap piece of paper and try it out a couple times first until you get the hang of it. That way you don't mess this up, because once these are on here, you're really not gonna be able to take them back off. All right, so then I'm making my trees by zigzagging across. Now once my trees are finished, oh, I kind of lost the top of that one. Once my trees are finished, I am going to add the stars. So when I add the stars, I'm going to use my white paint. I did the white out for this one so you could see it works fine. Sometimes the white out dries a little less white, but it was okay for the most part. But I'm going to use the toothpick here, and when I do this, I'm going to dip the tip of the toothpick and then I'm going to dot it on. So if you put more paint on it, you're going to get some slightly bigger ones, and then as you go, you're going to notice they get smaller and smaller. You can do little clusters where they're really close together. You can see in this one, she kind of does almost like this little line of them in a way, and then there's some up and below it, above it and below it. You can also do some really interesting things where you do like a constellation, if you want to look up a constellation and add it in. She's done some of that in her work as well. But it is good to have some groups of them where they're a little bit closer together and then a few that are kind of farther away. If you want to do like a shooting star, I would get kind of a big sort of amount of it, and then you can actually kind of drag the toothpick in the paint and make a shooting star as well. So it's up to you to decide how many stars you want. I certainly like to do a lot myself. And I do enjoy kind of making that almost line, that stream of them. And then you'll need to let that dry and you are finished. All right, I hope you have a great time. I'll see you later.